Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thank you so much for joining in for this session. I am Aditya. I am one of our coaches here from India, and I am really happy to be here with you all. Today's session is actually one that I'm absolutely excited about because we're going to be talking about tech that I have been working with for the last couple of years, tech that I absolutely love, tech that works, tech that's there for everyone, that benefits at least most of us, if not everyone, and that's cloud. So I'm honestly very happy to be here to talk about cloud tech today, and I hope it's a session that's going to benefit you all. I am actually, I've got some content prepared for this. I've got a little presentation I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to do some live demos with my favorite cloud platform, that's Azure. So I definitely hope that this benefits you. I hope that you have a good time throughout the session. So yeah, let's get this started. Before we jump into talking more about what cloud is and yada all of that, let's make sure that we're checked into this into local hack day, and we're checked in for this session as well. So I am just gonna bring up my screen, and I'll just tell you how to go through the check-in for this day. All right, sounds good. I already see love for Azure, and I love that. Yay! Hi, Karan. Hi. So yes, I am gonna bring up my screen now, and that's our local hack day. Sorry, global hack week check-in. I've been making this mistake all week long. Yeah, global hack week. That's the one. So in order to get yourself checked in for global hack week, what you need to do is go ahead and visit hackpack slash share 2022. That should get you registered for global hack week at least. And we scroll down, we just go to day 5. From there we need to register into day 5, and of course as well, just get yourself that point for the leaderboard. After that, last but not the least, you need to go ahead and make sure you're registered and checked in for this session. I'm going to share this link here as well. If you have trouble clicking it here, it's also available in the Discord. So you can go ahead and find this link there as well. All right, let me go ahead and share the day 5 link as well. There we are. There we go. So yeah, make sure you're checked in on all of these links. All right. And I'm gonna just give a couple of minutes or so, while we get through these check-ins. I've shared all of the links here in the chat, so you can go ahead and do that. Should be comfortable. In the meantime, I would love to know how many of you have played around with a cloud platform in the past, and if so, if is there any particular platform you like, any particular services you regularly tend to use? Please let me know in the chat. I'd love to see that. Hi Yash. Hey. Karan mentions Firebase. Nice. That's cool. Anyone else? All right. So seems like you've used Auth and Firestore. That's good to know. Meteor mentions Azure Functions. Yay! We're gonna see Azure Functions today as well. By the way, we're gonna see a couple of different things, but Azure Functions is gonna be there for sure. That's awesome. I'm so happy to know that. I've built so much with Azure Functions and .NET in the past. It's really been a regular um, piece of tech for me at one point. I mean, there was a time when I was coding week in week out, building functions for different stuff. So yeah, that makes me really happy. Seems like I forgot to check in myself, so I'm just gonna do that. And Yash mentions that they haven't tried any yet, which is perfect. That's awesome. That's exactly why we're here today. All right, so we're gonna have fun for sure. We're gonna try building out something. I know throughout the last few sessions I've tried to bring cloud somewhere or the other. We've talked about Azure Functions in the past. We've tried other platforms like Twilio and stuff like that. But today we're gonna work straight up with a cloud platform, of course. That being said, how many of you here really understand what cloud computing is? Before we jump onto one of these platforms and talk about these, um, how many of you understand what a cloud is? If you could put in a quick message in the chat, I'd love to know. If we don't have too many folks, of course, in that note, if not a lot of people have a thorough understanding, that's totally all right, because I'm actually going to start talking about what cloud platforms are and how they benefit before I jump onto live demonstrating how you can leverage cloud platforms for your work, for your benefit. So I'll tell you what. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I actually have a little presentation here that you can leverage, that we can use to understand what these platforms are. So if you're a newbie, if you've got some notes, that's totally all right. Karan mentioned storing and accessing data over the internet. Well, you're on the way there for sure. We have someone who started in their semester curriculum. Nice. Whether it's a newbie, that's totally all right. We all were. So it's always good to be a newbie. That's all right. That's all right. We've all started with theory at some place, and we're gonna touch on a little bit of that today as well. But we're gonna get some practical demo experience as well. So this is gonna be fun. We're gonna have a good time. Accessing remote services over the internet. Sure, sure. You're just here to learn. That's the spirit. Awesome. I'll tell you what, I'm loving the responses here. Good activity, a lot of people willing to learn. That's perfect. Yash has a great definition. Someone else's computer used for running our projects that we're renting. Yash is rarely on the mark on this one. That's probably the most apt answer I have at this point. That's the most apt simplified answer here. Great answer there, Yash. Thank you so much for that. I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring up my screen now so we can probably jump into a little more depth here and look at different cloud, what different cloud platforms are, what different types of cloud services are, and stuff, and so on and so forth. All right. So I believe my screen should be coming up anytime. I hope my presentation is visible. Yeah, awesome. So I'm going to start off talking a little about what is cloud computing, what are different cloud services, all of that, and then we're going to talk about where this helps, why it's necessary, potential use cases, and we'll try and build out something with cloud as well. Something very basic, just try out cloud services, like understand how you can deploy web apps or APIs, and what serverless functions are, how you can create databases or VMs. We'll try out a few different things. So this is going to be fun. All right. So the first thing is to talk about what cloud computing really is. Simply put, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet. As I believe Yash mentioned earlier, it's someone else's computer that's used for running our projects. Yeah, so it's not actually a cloud; it's just someone else's computer. But yeah, it's basically the delivery of these services over the internet, and that could include databases, storage, servers, software as well. It doesn't just have to be these hardware resources like compute and all. There is software as well included in that, and the benefit that this provides you is that you only end up paying for the services you use. So that actually helps decrease your operating costs. You don't have to buy your own server. You don't have to set up your own network. You don't have to manage your own infrastructure essentially. In a lot of scenarios, of course, there's aspects that you would, but it does allow you to run your infrastructure far more efficiently than you would have had you been building out your own hardware and infrastructure. So that's basically what cloud computing is. It's the delivery of compute services over the internet. Some of the benefits of cloud computing are that, of course, the first one, the big one, is cost. It eliminates your capital expense of buying hardware and the software for that, and setup and running and management of on-site data centers. Those it's going to save you space when it comes to putting up those racks of servers. It'll save you around the clock electricity. So and IT experts for managing that. So honestly, the a huge advantage is that it cuts so much cost for you, and the learning curve, of course, right? Because you don't have to bring people who have to manage that infrastructure. So cost is a big advantage. Secondly, speed. Most cloud services are provided self-service and on demand, so even massive amounts of resources can actually be availed and provisioned within minutes, and all it takes is a few mouse clicks, a little bit of typing, and you're good to go. So that does enable you to set up your infrastructure very, very quickly. And aside from that, it gives you a lot of flexibility to work with, and it takes pressure off some capital planning, which again saves a lot of time, right? Because you get billing calculators and with these platforms that help you understand what your costs are going to be like. So it saves a lot of time that way. Another benefit is global scale. The big benefit is that with a lot of these cloud platforms, they have data centers present all across the world in various geographic locations. So you can actually scale elastically, meaning that you can deliver the right amount of resources uh, per each location when it is necessary. You don't, because chances are that if your application is running on across two different continents and one has more usage, you can allocate more resources to that region and less to another. So it definitely allows you to scale a lot better and faster. Productivity is another big advantage, of course, because if you would have your on-site data center, if you were building out that hardware, you would require a lot of setup, software patching, a lot of IT management chores essentially. But cloud platforms remove a lot of that hard work, a lot of those tasks, because you simply don't have to manage any of that. So that way, your team can actually spend more time on your project or on other goals, such as whether they're your business goals or beyond. Your teams can actually spend more time on that rather than spend time on all of these unproductive chores. Unproductive from the perspective of, well, your product. Reliability, of course, is an advantage because with cloud computing platforms, you get data backup, disaster recovery services, and it's often easier and less expensive because data can just be mirrored over multiple redundant sites on that platform's network. So you don't have to set up a lot of that infrastructure. Again, the platform manages that for you. So tomorrow, if your solution goes down, if your production goes down, uh, you know, it's easier to have those backups and it's easier to recover from those problems. So it does make your systems a lot more reliable that way. Security wise, they're a big benefit as well because a lot of cloud providers have a broad set of policies and tech that allow you to strengthen your security posture overall. Which just can help you protect your data, apps, and infra from any potential threats or uh, vulnerabilities. So there are security benefits to these platforms as well. Zero and negligible downtime. Yeah, exactly. Reliability, right? That's such a big benefit that you could have, and that's especially important for any production level application. Thank you for that input. So there are a few different types of clouds that we come across. The first one is a public cloud. For example, if you have a cloud that's owned by a third party cloud provider, which is delivering services over the internet, uh, chances are it's a public cloud, right? One example is Azure or AWS or GCP. We're actually going to be touching on Azure today. We'll be playing around with some of their services. With public clouds, what happens is that all hardware, software, and any other supporting infra is owned or managed by the provider. So you're simply just accessing these services and managing your account through your browser. So it, of course, gives you the least amount of control on the hardware because it's just not yours, but it's pretty convenient to work with, especially for a lot of us. Now, with a private cloud, you would have cloud computing resources that are used exclusively by a single business or organization, right? So typically, what this would mean is that you could just have resources on your own premises, or you could basically, that's a cloud that caters just to one entity or an organization. These services are provided by quite a few companies as well. HP provides these. We have Microsoft providing some private cloud services. Um, so those are a couple of examples. VMware has some of that going on. Oracle has services on that front as well. So what this lets you do is, of course, this means there is more control over you know over your cloud, but it means you probably have to manage more, which can be a benefit in certain cases where you have extremely uh, privacy centric data, when you can't disclose any data, or you do not want that data to leave your premises, right? So you might just have set up your own data center, or you pay another provider to host your private cloud, like for example if it's with HP or VMware or one of these organizations, right? So this private cloud would be one where services and infrastructure are maintained over a private network. So chances are you're not accessing it over the internet through your web browser. I mean, you are accessing it through the web browser, but it's not available on the World Wide Web. It's available on a private network. Then there's a third model, which is called, a hybrid cloud, which combines public and private cloud, where you could be, uh, you know, you could have a balance of services where you're partially using public clouds and partially using private clouds, right? Services with sharing of data and applications between them. Now, this gives you the most amount of flexibility and the most amount of options because you can leverage the best of both worlds, right? You can ensure that you're leveraging your existing infrastructure, or for anything that's very privacy centric, you have all of your data available, uh, you know, on your premises and not leaving it. But at the same time, you can use the benefits of a public cloud. Nutanix has done a lot of wonderful work on the hybrid cloud space. So that's an organization that's a good example of, or that you can look into. Then, of course, aside from types of cloud computing, there are a few different types of cloud services, and these are terms you might have come across as well, right? Um, so the first one is, of course, infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. This is the most basic category of cloud computing services, and this basically means you renting infrastructure entirely, right? Um, you could be renting servers and VMs, virtual machines, or storage, networks, operating systems from a cloud provider, and you're using them in whatever way you want. So this is probably the most basic level of services, right? You straight away rent the hardware, and that's it. On top of the hardware, whatever you do is on you. The layer up is platform as a service, or PaaS, where you basically get an environment, an on-demand environment for developing, testing, and delivering your applications. So this really makes it easier to develop for developers to build and create applications without worrying and setting up the underlying infrastructure. This is actually a layer that we will play with today. Stuff that you hear about like Heroku or Netlify, or well, Azure App Service, which we're going to look into, that comes at the PaaS layer, because basically this allows developers to build a lot better, a lot quicker, and it gives some sense of control, but not a lot on the underlying hardware. So it just makes it easier for a developer to deploy, and the cloud platform manages anything below that level. Serverless comes around a similar layer, maybe a little above, around overlapping with PaaS essentially, which could also be known as functions as a service, which basically allows you to on building out specific functionalities without spending time on managing servers or infrastructure as well. and the provider handles the setup, capacity planning, server management, and often serverless functions are event driven, with resources being used only when a function or a trigger occurs. So they're really cost effective for sure. They do have, like, the pros are of course massively cost effective because you're not perpetually running your systems. You're only running them when an event is triggered, or yeah, it's essentially. So yeah, that's a big pro of serverless tech. Finally, of course, we have software as a service, or SaaS, which basically means you're getting an application over the internet, and there is zero control of what you do below that. An example of this, could be subscription-based software like Office 365 or Google Google Docs, Drive, G Suite. Essentially, that's an example of SaaS here for us, right? When you're using these resources and you're using these software and you're paying a subscription per month for these services, right? And any software upgrades, security patching, maintenance is something you don't have to worry about. All you're doing is you're just using the application over the internet through your web browser, through an application, whether it's on your phone or your PC, it doesn't matter. So yeah, those are a few different types of cloud services for us. And as far as uses of cloud computing go, there are a few examples that you have. First one being, if you want to create cloud native applications, if you want to quickly build, deploy, and scale applications for the web, whether they're mobile applications, whether they're APIs, you can actually take advantage of cloud native tech, right? Like containers, Kubernetes, other orchestrators like Kubernetes, whether it's the microservices architecture, or whether it's API driven communication, and a big advantage, of course, is leveraging DevOps. Um, the DevOps philosophy there. A great use for cloud computing platforms could be for testing and building applications, because maybe there are times where you want to just test an application, run it on a little staging environment for yourself, so you can always scale down your infrastructure very quickly. Just the cloud infrastructure can manage that for you, and that way you can actually reduce your application development cost and time. A great use is to store, backup, and recover data, right? If you want to ensure that disaster recovery is is necessary, that you want to maintain backups, it's easy, it's more cost efficient to protect data at that massive a scale, right? Because you could just transfer your data over the internet to an offsite storage system, then you can access anywhere across the world. Data analysis becomes easier because you can unify data across teams and locations with the cloud platform, and then you can use cloud services on any of these major platforms, such as their ML or AI offerings, which at this point all major cloud platforms do have. Any of the three major cloud platforms you look at, whether it's Azure, AWS, GCP, you will find AI ML services across them, and you teams can actually collaborate and use these, right, to uncover more insights for more informed decisions. Audio video streaming becomes convenient because you can connect with your audience anywhere and deliver high definition video and audio. Embedding intelligence is possible now. You can use intelligent models to engage with customers. Customer data platforms today are doing that, like Segment, for example, which is under which of course is now has been acquired by Twilio. You have Radastack. That's very much possible today. You can deliver software on demand, right? Like Office 365, which I mentioned. You Companies can deliver that, and that all of that is possible by the cloud. So it does have some amazing use cases that benefit all of us. And I'll tell you what, I've been blabbering a lot about cloud tech now, and theoretically, right? It must seem like that, I'm sure, at this point, which is totally fine because now we're just going to demo. So all that theory that I wanted to talk about, we're through with that. Now we're getting ready to demo. So just give me a second. I'm going to bring up my screen once again, and I'm going to share, as I'm going to show how I work with cloud platforms and how you can deploy APIs or web apps and stuff like that. Sounds good? I hope that's a yes. Oh yeah, if you missed the beginning part, these recordings are available. You can look at Twitch later or find the recording right now on YouTube. Let me go ahead and share that with you once. So yeah, this demo here, I'm going to live demo how you can deploy a web app, a full stack web app on Azure, and I'm going to show Azure functions once. We're going to look at serverless functions. We're going to see how you can create databases, stuff like that. So I hope that sounds like fun. Um, all right, so let me just take a sip of water and I'll go forward and share my screen. All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring my screen here to my right side. My StreamYard, I mean, because I'm going to be working on my primary display here. All right, so don't worry too much if I'm looking on the right side. It just means I'm looking at StreamYard. And looks like I am all set to go. Let me go ahead and share my screen once again. All right, so here's my screen. Um, First things first, since I'm showing Azure, uh, if someone doesn't have an Azure subscription, that's totally all right. We Azure actually has a student offering called Azure for Students, and any student can actually avail that for and get credits on Azure for free. So I'm just going ahead and sharing a link to that. That has a lot of different services such as, uh, you know, access to Linux VMs for 12 months, access to Windows VMs, SQL database. That's their NoSQL service, Azure App Service, which we're going to check out right now, which is a PaaS offering that allows anyone to deliver, web apps using Azure. You've got Azure Functions, which is the serverless offering. We're actually going to check out a few of these, so that's going to be fun. But in the meantime, I've shared a link to how you can go ahead and register yourself onto Azure. So once you can read more about eligibility and get yourself registered, and once you're through with that, you can go ahead and sign into Azure. I do have an account already, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And that wasn't the account I wanted to sign on with. Just give me a second. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and sign into Azure once. After you're registered, you can do the same. Hi, Kanak, just saw you there. Hope you're keeping well. Right. So once you're registered on Azure, you'll see a little portal of this sort. Let me zoom in a little. We've got a little bar here with different services. A little navigation bar. We've got our Azure shell here. We've got our directory subscriptions. All of this information. That of course is my billing information. And you've got all of these information. Kanak mentions that Azure is also available in the GitHub education pack, which should be the case if I'm not wrong. Let me go ahead and check that once as well, if that's the case. Even if not, GitHub Student Developer Pack actually has a lot of different student offerings that you can look into. They have a lot of different cloud platforms. And I just love the global campus that GitHub Student Developer Pack has right now. Honestly, lovely stuff there. So you've got these different packs, and I believe if you go to cloud, you will find a few different cloud offerings like Azure, of course, as Kanak mentioned, which actually does redirect to Azure for Students. So that is the one. But you've also got Visual Studio Dev Essentials, which contains a free year of Azure services. It contains plural site training. It has Visual Studio Community for Mac as well, which is definitely a benefit, right? You've got DigitalOcean, and you can see my code there, which I've at this point ended up using. So never mind, it's totally all right. So you can try out both of these. DigitalOcean is pretty cool as well. Definitely a good platform, right? So the link I shared, I believe it's the same because I saw that that's the Azure for Student offer. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one it shared earlier. So you can access it through both of these places, and then you've got a lot of other services like domains and all. Fun little note: you can actually get a domain through Azure as well for your web apps. But we've got these codes here, so you can always check this out and try it out. Pretty nice. It's a neat perk. So I'm gonna close this for now. Jumping back to Azure for sure. So here we have Azure. Oh yeah, absolutely. Canva is a great tool. So is Azure. I love Azure. But anyway, we've got a lot of different services here on Azure that actually you can look at as soon as we click on create a resource here as well, because this shows us all the different offerings they have. So as I see get started, it's got a few different offerings up here anyway. Like we've got VMs, compute services here. You can see Kubernetes service, Cosmos DB is there, NoSQL database solution, function apps. Those are serverless functions. The SQL database is there, of course, and you've got so many different offerings. Web apps are there, which we're gonna play around with for sure. So you've got these options and offerings here, and at the same time, you can actually go to individual categories and access these as well. Like you've got Azure's inbuilt AI offerings, cognitive services. That's one I've worked with for quite a lot of use cases around OCR and face detection and stuff like that. At the same time, you've got different GPU optimized TensorFlow images or PyTorch images that you can play around with. You've got blockchain offerings. You've got Azure's blockchain workbench. We have compute services, which are really a fundamental for any cloud platform. You can see their Kubernetes service here. You can find VMs here. We've got our web apps here. Of course, dedicated container offerings. Databases are available. You've got Redis cache. You've got the NoSQL solution for MySQL, Postgres, SQL. All of these, which become great. And there's so many different services you can find here. Different developer tooling around DevOps. You can find IoT offerings. You have mixed reality offerings, spatial anchors, which is something cool to check out. So there's a plethora of services here that you can play around with. What we're going to be playing around with first is, of course, web apps, right? So as I click on web app, you can see what all different options Azure has, and it has some, documentation as well available here, right? You can see what an app service web app is. You can go ahead, visit their documentation around this, which is it's pretty convenient to access it through here. You can, of course, after that, go ahead and create a little project for yourself as well, which I'm going to do right now. Now with Azure, you can actually create a web app and a database together. I'm not going to do that immediately, but I'll tell you what. Let's create a web app. Let's create a web app deployment for us. Okay. So you can select a resource group, which is really a set of resources for relevant purposes that you can just keep a collection together. That's what it is. I'm going to create a new one for us called GHW share cloud. We'll call this web app GHW share cloud as well. Let me see if this is available. And it is, which is awesome. What I want to do is I want to deploy this from code. I won't be using a Docker container, but fun thing, I can actually deploy code here directly, which is awesome, right? And I'm going to be deploying a .NET app, but as you look at these options, you can find Java, .NET, Node, PHP, Python, Ruby, all of these wonderful options, which is great, which is really convenient, right? You can do all of this from here directly. I'm going to be doing .NET, but if you're trying Azure, you can deploy whatever you want. That's totally all right. Okay, you don't need to worry too much about what I would do here. It's really about you being able to experiment for yourself as well, right? So don't worry too much about that. It's totally all right and valid if you choose to deploy with something else for yourself. So yeah, that's well selecting our runtime stack, and based on the runtime stack, what Azure does is that it actually suggests an OS for you for your preferred system. which is actually great, right? Which makes life really convenient. So you don't have to worry about what would be the ideal case. Now, like for example, for PHP, you automatically get the Linux option, and Windows isn't one. You're blocked out. For Ruby, of course, Linux is it's a similar case. For Node, you get a selection option. For .NET, you can do it on both, but Windows tends to be the preferred environment, so we'll leave it at Windows. Here, you can select the region that you want to deploy it from, and they have quite a variety of regions that you can do that from. Normally, at least for you, it's recommended to deploy it to a region closer to yourself, because chances are that's what your audience is, right? It's just going to decrease latency for you. So deploy to a region closer to yourself. I'm going to choose Central India because I'm in North India right now. That's the closest region. Now, when it comes to a Windows plan, you can actually create a new app service plan for yourself, right? I'm going to call this GHW share. And I'm going to create a new plan. When you create a new plan, you can select what specs you want for this system here. So you can look at the different production workloads, which tells you how much RAM and how many compute units this allocates. And it shows you costing, estimated costing for each of those as well. For us, though, we don't need those heavy loads. We're going to just go for one of these dev workloads, right? So I'm going to select the D1 load for me, which is, well, a smaller cost, but it has 1 GB RAM and 240 minutes per day of compute. For just trying out, you can try with the F1 load as well. Fun thing is that this actually features custom domains as well. You can actually connect domains with these that you can purchase through Azure. And then, as you go up and up and look at other options, you can find options to manually scale, and you can find included options. So Azure has all of these mentioned very clearly, right? You can find quite some expensive options as well, which shows you all the different features it offers you, like backups, traffic manager, staging slots. And then when we enter isolated, then we're really going up. So that's a little about these different options you have available. I'm going to stick to the D1, which is it's a dev test load essentially, and we're going to apply this. Then you can check out whether you have zone redundancy. Now right now it's disabled for me because well, I'm on a dev load and I don't well, need this. But if you have a production workload, right, you want to ensure you have some sense of redundancy. And what that would allow you to do is that in case you have some issues, right, with your deployment at that particular instance, you have a redundant system running that keeps your solution up and running. Next option we want to look at are deployment options, which basically allows you to set up CI/CD beforehand. I'll tell you what, we can actually do that, because what this will mean is that whenever we push our code to GitHub, for example, it's just gonna, well, it's gonna update on its own. You don't need to worry about manually deploying every single time. So we can actually enable this, and it'll allow you to select, well, a GitHub repository where your application is deployed. I don't have a GitHub repository set up right now, but the thing is you can actually set this on later as well. You don't need to do this beforehand. So we can leave it disabled for now. We can try out manually deploying and then maybe set up CI/CD later on. That's totally all right. Next up, monitoring. Normally, it's recommended to keep application insights on with Azure at least. And what this is basically an application performance management tool, which is actually fantastic. It gives you amazing insights around your application, any performance issues, and you can get analytics about how your application is working. It's great, and it's definitely a recommended tool for anyone who's building out applications to deliver to an audience. Next up, of course, tags, which are name value pairs for categorizing resources. Not a mandate. It's great if you have some systems set up and you're collaborating across a larger team. For now, it's okay. And, because it allows you to view consolidated billing per tags. But for now, I guess I'll just let this be. Lastly, you can just review everything you've set up. It'll give you your estimated price, your details, everything you'd selected essentially. CI/CD is not set up right now. We'll set it up afterwards. But beyond that, we're good to go. If all of this looks good, you can go ahead and you can create. And here you have the deployment in process. I'll tell you what. In the meantime, let me go ahead and create a little .NET web app that we will deploy later on, while our services are still being brought up. I'm just creating a little .NET web app, nothing to worry about too much. So share. Yeah, our web app is up in there, and I'm gonna open VS Code for me now, where I can find this web app essentially. So if I go back to Azure, it looks like our deployment is up and running, and I can go ahead and check it out now. So if I go and click on the URL that's deployed, it will probably show us a default page that we have up and running, which basically says that our web app is on and running and waiting for content. And we can set up deployments, we can create a new website. It's pretty nifty, right? Convenient. And then along with that, you have an activity log. You can set up access control. We have quick starts for deployment, and we're going to be using Deployment Center when we connect CI/CD later on. But even if you manually deploy, you can actually find your logs anyway. We will, however, manually deploy from GitHub after this. Aside from that, you've got your configuration settings if you want to save any environment variables and so on and so forth. Connection strings for your database, identity. You've got application insights, as I mentioned earlier. We've got custom domains that you can add here, and you can actually purchase a domain through this if you want. Like if I want to buy a domain through here, and I can actually go ahead and do that. I can just look for GHW share different cloud, and we can see what domains are available, and we can purchase a domain and connect it. Like ghwsharecloud.com is available through this. Of course, it's got a cost of its own, but you can actually purchase one through here if you want. I'm not going to purchase one for now, but I can do that, is the thing. I can set my contact information, have all of these details here. Pretty convenient. But for now, we're going to go back because I'm not setting up a custom domain at the moment. But that way it's got quite a lot of options here, right? You have web jobs, you've got MySQL in app, you've got a lot that you can do throughout with this system. So yeah, just gonna discard these changes and go back. But yeah, there we have this application. There's a lot of options that you can probably explore for yourself as well, like API definitions, API management, CORS settings if you want to look into that, right? So that's quite a lot here that you can look into. For now, I have my web app that I created, right? Let's just check it out locally once and see how it works. So I'm just gonna go ahead, we've got my program here, and I'm just gonna try and run and see what happens when it works, what it should look like. And then we're gonna push this first to Azure directly through VS Code. But it seems like this is running. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open this website for us. And that's what it's gonna look like. It's gonna look like we'll have a welcome page. We of course have this home page, privacy policy. That .NET's automatically created for us. Okay. So what we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna keep this link open at the side as well, because we're gonna see what this looks like. I've shut the local thing down for now. Now the fun thing about Azure is you can actually deploy these apps through Visual Studio Code. We have extensions that are available for this purpose. You can search for Azure App Service, and here, I mean, I already have it installed, but you can look for this here. And what it does is it'll open this little page, a little tab here, where I can log into my subscription. I'm already logged in. You will see a login there for you first, if that isn't the case. But I can find all of these different web apps that I have up and running. So I can select GSW Share, which was the application I wanted, and I can, you know, find the application settings for this. I can find any databases connected, deployment details, files, all of that. All this information is available to me here. I have logs available. All this, there's a lot of information that I can see, and I can actually go ahead and just deploy this folder. I've automatically added a configuration. I've selected the web app that I wanted to deploy to, right, which was GSW Share hyphen cloud, and I will deploy that. So as soon as I get started, it'll show me my deployment information here. It should come up in output anytime now. But basically, I'm just deploying directly through Visual Studio Code at this point. That's what I'm doing. And you can see it shows that deploying is written there. And it seems like deployment is complete. So now when I look at that website or I reload this, it shows that web page we had earlier, right? And if I go to our deployment center and I look at logs, it will show there was a push created here, which is pretty great, which is convenient. But you don't want to push every single time, right? When you have a little, well, every single time when you make an edit, you don't want to be pushing it, because if you forget, it's just left behind, right? One thing is that we can actually set up CI/CD automatically with GitHub and a few other resources, but we're going to do it with GitHub for now. So I'm just going to publish this app to GitHub once, and I'm going to publish this to a public repository. I don't want to have app settings in there. That's just not. I also want to remove my build files, but the rest is good to go. Where did that disappear off to now? And no, that's a little typo I have there. We're going to publish this to a private repository, remove app settings, then that's okay. And we've created a first commit for us. So there's a repository, and we'll go ahead now. We can find this code here. I will go ahead and I will connect this with my app service solution now. So if I select a code source, I've got GitHub here. My account is already logged in. If you aren't, you will have to log in for the first time. That's there for sure. But I can select what organization I want to deploy out of, and it will show me a list of repositories from my deployment. There's a lot of them. But yeah, I can just scroll through. I have my repository here. I can select which branch I want to deploy. It already has my runtime stack, and I can preview the GitHub action that this creates. So if I save this now, what's going to happen is, as I reload, it will now create a little commit. Okay. Yeah, now it's set up that pipeline. So if I reload it now, it's added a GitHub action there that deploys this web app to Azure App Service every single time. And I can find that action here now. So it's actually going to run and deploy this app from GitHub for me at this moment. So while, of course, after this deployment, this app might look the same, it is no more being, it's no more being deployed from my personal system, and it's now, of course, going to be deployed from GitHub. I have a question here around cons of Azure. I see. Uh, yeah, I mean, of course, each of these platforms have their pros, their cons. Um, Pricing, of course, is something to look into, right? A lot of Azure services, they've got their own individual pricing and so on and so forth. Controlling costs can be tricky at times. Support is of course a very individual thing. I can't say on that because I have never faced into issues. But that's something to think about. Maybe speak with people who have some experience. Of course, complexities are there, right? Because at the end of the day, Azure has a lot of offerings for a lot of different fronts, and that could include purchasing of different licenses, which have their own processes, and that lot of these complexities are individualized to this platform. Now, if you're looking and comparing with AWS might have more services, more offerings that you might want to explore. Right, pricing differences are going to be present, and then of course there are individual preferences that come into play here as well. Someone might like this UX more, someone might not. So, I mean, those are a few things to think about for sure. But overall, personally, at least, I like working with Azure. So I go ahead. I work with Azure as much as I can. It works well for my preferred technology, which is .NET. Has a lot of support for that. So it's it's nice. It's good, right? So that's there. That's there for us. Aside from that, okay, so while of course this build is running and this deployment is done actually, so this web page here now is actually being deployed from Azure and not from my local device. I can see that build log there. So let me go ahead and try and make a push here now. Let's see what happens, right? Because I think we saw that there was some, we have our index page, we've got our titling, all of that. But I think I noticed that. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's make a change to this index page. I'm gonna change this paragraph here. I'm gonna call it, say, thanks for joining us at Global Hack Week. Here, never mind. But we're gonna let that be. Um, so you know what? I'm gonna make a little change here, and I'm gonna push this update welcome page, actually index page. So of course I need to sync changes because I had that last update as well, right? But as soon as I do that, here's what's gonna happen in with my latest commit. So now when I look at my repository here, you're gonna see this build right on the last commit we have, which is the merge from that change we had earlier as well. And we've got the GitHub action running, which is something you can actually see here as well. If I refresh it, we'll see there's an in progress build going on, and you can find the entire build running. It's going to show everything that's happening, which is great. GitHub actions are nice that way. It's going to set up .NET for us. It's going to build this application out, and very soon this page you here that you see, this learn about, is going to go away. That's what's going to happen, and we're going to see a different message there instead. meantime, let me know if you have any queries, thoughts, questions, anything. So it looks like this build is good to go, and we're on to the deployment stage now. What's happening here anyway is that beneath this app service is an Azure VM that's running and sorting this all out. So it's essentially the pass we talked about earlier, right? That's what we're using here. So it's waiting for the runner to come online. But we're gonna be through with this deployment pretty soon as well. And looks like that was quick. It was just, I guess, waiting and showing the same message, but looks like that deployment is through. So if I reload this now, I should see a different message. And that is thanks for joining us at Global Hack Week Share. That's exactly what I pushed, right? So now if I make any updates to this Git repo, I should see these updates instead of the original thing. And of course, we've got all our different options and settings that we can play with and change. Most of which is for development, of course, at this point. That's the case. But it's pretty convenient that way if you think about it, because we can just change any of this information and just push it to GitHub, and it's going to manage deployment for us, which is convenient, very convenient. So that's definitely um, how you can build a little web app and deploy that on Azure. I know I mentioned there was another little piece that I was going to play around with. I was going to show how you can set up a database, and we'll try out serverless functions. So we're going to do that now as well. Let me go ahead. Let me go onto my homepage once again. So you can see we've already got a few different database options here. Here are SQL databases, and I know I already have a couple of databases running, not learning. But I can go ahead. It's pretty convenient to create databases this way, because with Azure you can actually, again, once again, you get convenient access. You can create, a new. Oh wait, I don't need to create a new one. I've got a one created for this. We've got Global Hack Week Share already going on, and I can select the database name, GSW Share Cloud, and I can select a server if that, or create one, of course. I'm gonna select a location closer to me. I can use just the SQL authentication. Actually, we can set both. I can set an admin for myself if I want. So with Active Directory, what I can do is I can actually, select an admin on this Active Directory that I want, and then use this account as well to log in if I would like. Otherwise, of course, the server details are there as well, right? I select Aditya. Password can be whatever I want it to be. Okay, yeah. Let me. I'll tell you what. I'll just share setup. If the password doesn't match. Okay, now that's good to go. So with this, I can actually log into this SQL server using either my Active Directory login, which is, well, it basically means that this tenant of Azure that I'm on, I can log in with that, and I don't want to save that. I can add these to an Elastic pool, which would basically provide it's a convenient solution for managing performance of multiple databases. I don't need an Elastic pool. I don't have multiple databases. But I can select and configure my database right now as well if I'd like. So I'm just going to select a basic database because that's all I need at the moment, nothing more than that. Then of course, you can select backup storage redundancy, and here geo redundant is the most convenient option for me, so I'm going to keep that. For network connectivity, I can have private or public endpoints. I'm going to let it be a public endpoint for now. I want to allow Azure services and resources if I want to later on, and of course, adding current client IP so that I can actually access the database from here. But that way, it's pretty convenient to work with. You once you've done this setup, you can go ahead and you can start using this SQL database like you would any other database, right? So yeah, and we're gonna leave tags again for now. But this way, you can create a SQL database that you can use wherever you want, as any conventional database you would. Like if, for example, I build a little API that I need to, use to connect with the database, I can do that, or I can actually send the link and you can get added to any app, and just as you would with any other conventional SQL database. So that's all the database options here at least, right? Hmm. In the meantime, does anyone have any questions? So here's a database. We have our database server name. I can get my database connection string from here, right? We've got that for, well, if I'm using it with .NET or if you're using it with Java, JDBC, you've got all of these options here. With PHP, if you have a PDO with Golang, so it gives all of these connection strings to you by default if you want. And in fact, there is a query editor here as well, right? So if you want to play around with your database and you want to, let's say, create a table in SQL and, just have that here. Like instead of getting SSML, you can straight away create a table here and play around with that. Like I want to create this table and, I might have name as varchar type 255. I could run this and I could just, add stuff here if whatever I want. Um, like if for example, tell you what, I just want to ask, is everyone able to follow along? If I insert into Now we have that table available here. That table is visible. So if I want to insert into this table, I can just I can add table these details here. Use comma, you know. Wait, is that a column name issue? Ah, okay. Just getting a little error here. Not entirely sure why. But the fun thing is I can just try and figure things out and see where I'm going wrong. If I want to create a new row, that one I just leave and I add. I mean, that's working. If I want to do something else, I want to add MLH. Yeah, I'm not sure where I was going wrong. Probably a SQL query thing, but Azure makes it comfortable to work anyway. That's just me messing around with SQL, but I've got, well, a data editor here to play around with, which is in preview at the moment, but convenient, isn't it? I want to create a third row, .NET. I can create all of these because that's an identity uh, column that's just gonna add those automatically anyway. Maybe that's kind of where I was messing up with things. Let me go ahead and try where I was messing up again. Into common name, values. Ah, I guess I've kinda. It is null, not loud, but then technically, yeah, this is just. Never mind. Let me. Damn, it's just been a while since I worked with SQL. Okay, that worked. So if I just select this now, okay, yeah, sorry, my bad. That's okay, working now. I've forgotten my SQL, unfortunately. Just, but yeah, that's you can just have a SQL database up and running quickly like that. It's convenient, it works, and then you can do it. It's great, and you can just use that connection string and work with SSML or any other tooling you want as well, if you'd like. You could have this in your application and use this straight out of there. So it's a convenient tool for sure that you can play around with. And yeah, go ahead and try it out for yourself. Now, there's one more functionality I wanted to showcase, and that was functions. Right, I wanted to talk about functions here. Function app. So yeah, I can go ahead and I can create a function app from here, or I could have just gone to, well, create a resource and directly click on create. Either way works. I'm going to use the same resource group I had, and we'll call this GHW Cloud Functions. I'm going to select .NET here again because I like .NET. That's just probably a given at this point for me. Again, we're gonna host it with Windows because well, that's the best for .NET. You've got a few different plans here. So with Azure, what it has, it's a few different plans. Consumption is your conventional serverless functions plan. Functions Premium, what that lets you do is, so in general, the big problem with functions is that it can have cold starts, right? Because you're triggering services on demand. What if the system it's supposed to run on is off? So you have a delay added because you need time for those systems to turn on. That so what the premium plan does is it kind of a automatically scales, uses pre-warmed workers, so there are no issues of cold starts. So your apps would run near continuously. There's no delay after being idle. So it has a different costing, of course. And then there's of course the app service plan where your functions run within an app service plan at app service plan rates essentially, which works well for a very long running scenario. So that's the case, and with that it would use an already existing plan that you might have, right? Like the other app service plan we have, which is being underutilized, for example. We're going to stick to consumption for now. Networking is there, not something we need to worry about for the moment. Monitoring is there, again, application insights, great. We can also use the same application insights if we want. So I'll just let that one be there. Tags, leave it be, and we'll create a function. There are quite a few different function types you can play around with. Like, for example, you have HTTP triggered functions which work on HTTP requests. You have timer triggered functions which work, at cron schedules. You could have something based on with a trigger on Azure Blob Storage or Azure Event Queues. There's quite a few different ways by which you can work with functions and use them and consume them, which we'll check out now because we'll be building uh, a function here with through Azure. So let me just go ahead. We'll close that off for now and create a new window because just as App Service was there, we have an extension available for Azure Functions as well that you can search and find, and you can actually create functions directly from here. So let me create a new functions project in the meantime. I'll just go to desktop, new folder. We'll call it GHW share cloud function. Wrong name, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I will select this directory. I will again build with C Sharp, but with Azure, you can create functions with JavaScript, TypeScript, Python, Java, PowerShell, or have a custom handler. That's all on you. We'll use C Sharp because I like C Sharp, as I mentioned. And I'll use .NET 6. Now, like I mentioned earlier, right, we've got a few different triggers. We've got HTTP triggered functions, timer triggered functions, which I incidentally used in a stream just earlier during Global Hack Week share as well. We've got Azure Queue Storage, Blob Storage, Event Hub, as I was mentioning, Event Grid, Cosmos DB. So there's a few different, HTTP triggered functions that you can play around with. And for now, we'll just use the basic HTTP triggered function, and we will call it test function. Namespace is okay that we can leave we can, or actually I'll tell you what, we'll call it my function, my dot function for now. And I messed that up. But that's okay. Doesn't matter. We can edit that later on. Not a problem. I selected the anonymous authorization level and not another one because this is just a test function. But in the future, you might want to keep something separate there. You might want to have a different authorization level for better security. And I've just changed that namespace that I kind of messed up, but that doesn't matter. Then, we've got our local dot settings where you can add environment variables for testing. We've got our CS proj, which would have been there in the other project that I'd shown as well. That's the equivalent of a package.json, essentially. So, that's a little function for us. What this function here will do is it will get a name from as a query or in the post body. and say hi. Okay. So if suppose I publish this function, and I can publish this function actually, I can deploy to function apps. So I can select GHW Cloud Function. Let me see. That means it must have been deployed already. Yeah, it is. So if I go to this link right now, it's going to do absolutely nothing. That's what will happen. It'll just show that function apps are running. Microsoft, Azure has these nice home pages for all of these, which is kind of nice. Always something I've liked. But I'll tell you what, I'll go ahead and I'll deploy this function here. And then we'll connect GitHub to this as well, because they again have CI/CD available. Okay, yeah. It's starting deployment for the function, so I can see this little log here as that happens. And then we'll test this out. We'll test out this function here in Postman. I've got Postman open for that purpose, and I'll just create a new, close these off. Yeah, just create a new one. I had these open because we were trying this out in an earlier stream, is what we were doing. But we'll try out these functions here. Deployment successful, apparently, which is great. We can also debug these locally. I am just not doing that at the moment. But yeah, we can try these and deploy these locally using something called Azure Functions Core Tools, which you can Google search and you'll find the documentation for. But either way, as soon as we deploy, we have a trigger available that we can use. This is our function here that we have. So if suppose I go ahead and I send this a little request, I'm going to get a response here that the function triggered successfully, and I need to pass the name as a query string. Similarly, if I go up here and I do the same, I'm going to get a little response there. You can actually find the function here that we have. You can find this function here within the function app, and it will show us the execution count. You can get the function URL. You can even try it. You should be able to test it here as well. Can't change the code here for now because we're deploying it off a package. But if you create your function within this, which is again possible, you can actually edit this within here. So those are our deployment details that you can check out. And then of course that's the URL. But anyway, monitoring is possible. We can check whether when the function was run, when it was tried out. So if I add a query called name, let's say Aditya, which is my name, it'll send me a different response. It shows that hi Aditya, hello Aditya, the function ran successfully, because in the code that's how the response message is being developed, right? Let's deploy this to GitHub once, and I'll tell you what, we will make a little change here. We will add, we'll change the message that we have. So I'll just call this, say, create function. And I'm going to publish this to another public repository. And we can find this on GitHub as well. So now if I go back to this function app, I can again set my deployment to come from here instead of a local push. Right, so let me go ahead and we'll select the repository of here. Just as earlier, we now have this repository available here. I can select the branch. We've got the preview file available as well. So I'm going to go ahead and this is going to set up CI/CD for us. And it has, which is great, which we can see here. It's added the workflow for us. just as earlier, except this is a little different because this is for Azure Functions and not, App Service. But in the meantime, I'll tell you what, I'll just fetch this and pull this back. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to change this message here to say, thanks for joining Global Hack Week Share. And I'm going to push this. Let's say we update the response message. Then I'll sync the change. So once that happens, if I look at GitHub, I will see that there is, well, there is a log because I now have the project being, the function app being built as per this new commit. It's gonna first run this one and then gonna update it according to this. But as soon as this is built and deployed, we will have an updated message in there. How are you all doing in the meantime? Have you been able to understand what's going on so far? Are you able to try out what? How's this going for you? Actually, cancel this earlier run. And we'll just let this one go. Yeah, I canceled the older run because it's just an unnecessary add at this point. Um, we just want to update by the response message. But yeah, you can run Java based applications. It has support for Java. Like I showed an app service earlier, you could select Java as an option. Seems like we're running this deployment, so we'll be through with this build soon. But Java-based applications are supported in Azure, so you can always um, check those out. I will say you'll have to check with Java versions. So, like just for example, if I create a resource, and I'm going to go back to that app I had earlier. Within here, you can find these options, right? We've got Java 11 and Java 8. So if those support JSP and servlets, sure, then you can. Back to deployment center. Let's look at these logs. And yeah, we have a successful, the deployment's gone through successfully. Great, awesome. That earlier one I just canceled because we didn't need that. But now if I run this response, I should get that updated message. Thanks for joining Global Hack Week Share, which is great, right? So yeah, that's, and we get a 200 OK because we're sending an OK object result. This returns an OK object. Now, had this been a not found object, we would have got an error 400. Like, I'll just show you. I'll run this locally once, and I'll show you what I mean. And I pressed on the wrong button. But like I pressed Windows F5. That wasn't what I was supposed to do. But if I just test this locally once, just because I changed that from OK to not found, while you get this message, it's gonna show 400 or 404. What fun things we do. Let me go ahead and try this out once. It's just a local test. I'm not going to push this one. But like just for example, I have a local host and it gives a 404 just because I changed that. Um, even if there's a name and I mention Aditya, it's gonna still give a 404 not found is what it'll do because that's what we changed that result to. So yeah, just fun stuff. Yeah, that's function for us. We can change this function as well. Play around if you want to try it out on you can actually go ahead and do that as well if you would like. Just I've sent in the link for that. You can try out this website if this function if you want. If you want to play around with the other deployment we had, the one we created. 1 second, let me go back. The app service, that website is available as well. You can check out both of these. Do you have any questions? If not, I'll tell you what. Let me go ahead now and I'll show you how you can submit on DevPost for this activity. Because I think I'm through with what I wanted to share. So let's go ahead and let's submit on DevPost. So that's the day 5 DevPost link for us. And as you can see, it has a little build with the cloud technology submission available. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to join the hackathon. I'm working solo. That's what we all are. Found it via the website, and I heard about it because I'm an MLH coach. And I'm going to register here for now. We'll create a project. That's CAPTCHA. Always a scary one. Wow, that's a lot of CAPTCHA. Oops, I missed that one. I missed one out. Phew. That was a heavy CAPTCHA. Yeah. So, you know, as I fill this up, all what I'm gonna fill is I'll just write build with a cloud technology. That's what I'm gonna type. And I like to name it with GHW share 2022. I'm gonna add a little space there, because why not? Web app and serverless function deployed on Azure. For the project story, at least this part, we're just gonna keep it at what it does and how we built it. Here I'm just gonna add created a web app and a serverless function, and I'll just write build using .NET 6 and Azure. Built with we've got .NET and I've got Azure. For the try it out links, please make sure you have your GitHub repos available. That's gonna be necessary to have. Like for me, one of these, of course, is the cloud functions, and the other is cloud. I have both of these links, so I'm gonna add both of these here. Okay. And I'll also add the deployed links for me. So I can save those. If you've got it deployed, please go ahead and share those links, because why not? Right? I'll have both of those there. And in the video link, I'll just add the stream link because I like to do that. But you don't have to put a video link. That's not a mandate. Okay. You don't have to mandate yourself during Global Hack Week, at least. And in make a selection, we'll just select build with the cloud technology. And I will save and continue. Select terms and conditions, and submission is through. Awesome. So, I've got my links there, I've got my functions, all of that's up and running. Great. Yeah, that's your submission is through. So that's about it from me. Any questions? Any further questions you have? Anything at all? If not, that's totally all right. I guess that's it for me in that case. This was my last session in Global Hack Week share. So thank you so much for hanging around with me and interacting and having fun in these sessions. I've definitely had a great time throughout. And yeah, I hope you've all had fun as well. Sent a pull request for the first app. I'll check that out. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's look at that. Let's see if there's an update in the deployment. Fun activity. This is going to be nice. Have you sent it in for the web app? Let me just. Okay, I see. All right, this is going to be fun. Let me check what this pull request is. And if it looks good, I will merge it on screen and we'll see the changes that come up. Let me share my screen. Screen one, that's good. So yeah, we have a pull request in this. Update image of, wait, what? Where have you added this image? Okay, okay. Let me. I tell you what. Just gonna merge this and see what happens. I have no idea what this will look like, but oh, okay. So this just is a screenshot being added above. Thanks. So I have to see what this image looks like, and okay, this should be something that now pops up in the middle of our web page now, is it? I'm gonna merge this. This is gonna be funny for sure. Okay. So if I go back to my code, now see that there's, the app is going to be deployed because of this contribution. But this is going to be interesting for sure. Huh. Another meme. I'm not adding too many contributions, but yeah, this is going to be a meme for sure. That's going to be the meme. But you're going to get to see it live on stream, which is fun. But see, this is a perk, right? Anyone can collaborate together. We're contributing on the same project, and it's not going to be automatically deployed, which is great, right? So if I go to deploy now, and I just starting the job, it's going to start on the hosted runner. And I'm not even going to open Azure for this right now. It's just everything's going to be managed from here itself. So as a developer, once it's set up, I I can forget about Azure. I don't need to worry about my cloud platform and my infra again and again. Yeah, I was just reloading because I wanted to look at those. But yeah, the deployment's done. So if I open this website now, let's see what happens. Yeah, there's a little picture of me. Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yash, thank you so much for that little contribution. As advertised, it does add an image of me to this website. Great. Wonderful. So yeah, that's about it. That's an awesome way. See, as a developer, you can just collaborate and it's gonna manage your infrastructure. And we didn't have to worry at all about deploying this again and again after just pushing to code, right? That's the perk. That's how cloud platforms assist us. So yeah, that's about it from me. Fun contribution. Thank you so much for doing that. Uh, that was definitely fun. I do see a question here about what service is more reliable, AWS or Azure. See, they're both great. In all honesty, AWS has a wonderful plethora of options available that you can do it. I have an Azure bias, A, because I have credits available, and B, so for .NET especially, Azure is great because a lot of the services Azure has behind the scenes are also built with .NET. Um, Aside from that, Azure as a system has the most amount of support for .NET. So that's why I personally prefer working with Azure. But I know AWS has an amazing amount of support for .NET as well. They also sponsor the .NET Foundation, so another great platform that you can play around with. I think for me, it's just I am very comfortable with the developer experience of Azure. Is why I prefer it. That UX, that DX, it's just comfortable for me. But I know a lot of people who prefer AWS, and AWS has a great amount of services, of course. So be sure to check it out if you want. Don't hesitate in doing that. It's a great platform in its own place. But yeah, that CI/CD is definitely working. We've tested that. I didn't have a staging environment set up is the thing, so there wasn't another deployment slot. Because on the very basic tier, it doesn't have those slots. But after merge, that CI/CD works. So it does work. So yeah, thank you so much. Great session. We had a ton of fun. I enjoyed myself, and that's the last session I have throughout Global Hack Week. Share. So it's been wonderful interacting with you all over these last few sessions. I've had a ton of fun meeting you all, and I hope to interact with you at some other hackathon in the near future as well. So yeah, all right then. Thank you so much. See you all. Bye bye.